But anyways, going back to the farm thing, so that was the flood, and like a couple months went by because I was gonna build a cabin. So I'm like, I lived in the middle of Omaha still at that time. But I was like, if I build this hunting cabin, obviously I can document the build, do all that whole thing, plus have a place to stay with my buddies. So we were driving an hour and a half there, hour and a half back every day. But the water never went down. So I remember sitting down with my fiance and being like, should we just like go look for a house down there or something like that? Which seemed like so crazy, whatever. Went on Zillow, typed it in, whatever. This house came up that I currently live in. And I remember like making the joke, I'm like, oh, this would have been perfect, but like way out of the price range that I was expecting, you know. I'm like, oh, there's just no way we're gonna do this. And then I was like, I'll just email about it, which is the worst mistake. You don't do that. If you don't, it's like cars in like houses or property, whatever. You just don't inquire about it if you don't want to buy it. But I want the things I wanted to buy it, but I knew I shouldn't. So I emailed and they're like, it's sold. I'm like, it was like a thank God moment. So I'm like, oh, thank God. Because I knew I would have tried to pull strings to make it happen because it was like a nice house, 80 acres, pond, like content heaven. But it was just out of my reach at that moment. And so like time went on, like I don't know, 3-4 weeks went by, kind of blew it off. I'm like, we're not gonna move. I don't need to move because I just built a house like 9 months ago. I'm like, I can't move. This is stupid. Well, I go back on Zillow and it came back up. I'm like, that's weird. So I text a real estate agent. She's like, yeah, it fell through. And I was like, that's a sign. I'm like, it probably wasn't, but I'm like, because it falls through all the time.
It was, obviously.
But me, I'm like, it's a sign. So like, I was like, all right, I'm interested. Went and looked at it. One thing led to another and moved. And just moved to the middle of nowhere.
So it was definitely a sign.
You would think. It was
definitely a sign.
Yeah.
Because look at where you're at now. The one thing that I noticed is that, look, when you're vlogging, it's super difficult to have shit that's interesting happen.
Absolutely.
When you and Maddie and I, mostly me, made the same mistake with this thing because we could have made this studio like I just added new things and you know like you have a project that you're working on constantly and you're remodeling and building, like that's something that people want to watch because they want to see the evolution of that. If from the very beginning I would have found Casey before he started building his thing, I would have been a lifelong viewer of what is happening in his space that I want to watch. And you finding that, like I remember your early videos where you like a raised platform garden or some shit. Like that's I'm like, okay, that's when I started watching and being like, oh, what the fuck's he up to today? Oh, what, you know what I mean? Like it kept me coming back because of the endless amount of projects. So this land and house that you buy, what was on the property at the time?
So there was a pond. It's like 2-ish acres, a house, and there was like this old shed. That was it. But like at one point, I think it was a cattle ranch because it was like it's really hilly. I don't think they could have really planted much crops. But the previous owners they're actually from Texas. Old retired people basically just want to live in the middle of nowhere and not be bothered. But they didn't raise any animals, so like it was just overgrown. Nothing had been done. Like there's barbed wire fence around the whole thing, and that is it.
So 80 acres, barbed wire all the way around. Everything's overgrown, obviously, because there's no animals and there's no landscaping.
There's no management. Yeah, they just mowed a path down to the pond and back. That's the most in the front yard and stuff like that.
Did you fish the pond?
Yeah, so I went down there and it was like the second or third showing I kind of had it, which it was like an hour and a half away. So I was like, I would kind of make most of it. So I asked him like, hey, can I fish? And she didn't really care. First cast, caught a bass. I was like, all right, this is it. Like this, even if I didn't catch a fish. I mean, probably like 3 pounds. Nothing too crazy. But just the fact that it's like that loaded, I'm like, oh, this is just content here, baby. Like, you know, if it was like really tough fishing and been like, all right, I mean, you can manage it and stock it. But the fact that it's like ready to go to where I could make a video, wake up in the morning and get a video done in my backyard, that idea was like mind blowing to me.
Because you have to find the bridge, right? You have to find the bridge of what it is that you do and then transition onto something else. In my case, I started as a gaming YouTuber. I used to upload gameplay videos, montages, and then from there, I'm like, okay, there's something bigger here. I have to be a manager. I'm not good enough to fucking play Call of Duty at that level, so I gotta be a manager of sorts.
Okay.
So then I'm like, well, what sort of content can I create on my business or the business that I do? And I'm like, well, shit, what we're doing, nobody else is doing, so let me record that. So you use that fishing sort of bridge. You know, you're like, I bought this property for this pond and this fish. I'm gonna stock it. But then little by little, you started sneaking in these renovations that you did to the farm. What was how many projects do you think you've done since then?
I mean, I'm posting like 5-6 videos a week now, and I would say of those 5 or 6, 4 of them is doing some type of building of some. I mean, so dozens and dozens. I mean, we've done. The first thing we kind of did was like we wanted animals. I'm like, I want chickens. I've never raised any animals other than dogs before. So we got chickens, then we got goats and whatever, and now it's like we've got dozens of all sorts of different animals now that run around. We built all the pens ourselves. Like I'd never built a fence before. Like everything to like country people is so common sense, but like it's crazy like how much you have to learn just about like it's like you can't Google a lot of it either. Like I had a sheep.
Now you can.
I had a sheep die the other day.
Oh,
overate. Do you know a sheep could just overeat?
no,
Me neither. Just died.
I've tried. I've never died.
So it's like, I mean, you kind of have to learn the hard way. So I called the vet. I'm like, hey, can you come check this out? And he's like, yeah, I ate too much. So what are you supposed to do? Tell him, hey, quit eating? Like, there's just so much like that. Like,
yeah.
so not
How
that
do you manage that? Are you the one that feeds?
Yeah,
them?
I feed him and just gave him too much, or like one of them didn't let the other one eat his share and ate his share, or something like that. Like it's not that everything dies, but like there's so like every day there's probably like 6 of that example where it's like, how do you do this and or why did this happen? And I had no idea. Every day, it's like the most. I feel like I'm in like farm school right now.
Yeah.
But I've no teacher.
Yeah.
I'm the teacher, which is not a good idea.
No.
But I document like the successes and failures.
Yeah.
All like everything. Like it's the good and the bad. And
how many animals total do you have right now? Do you know exactly? Do you forget about? Do you name them all? I hear that
we pretty much name them all. Yeah.
I hear that when you're a farmer or a rancher, you don't name the animals because when it comes time to eat.
Yeah. No, we name them. I have a lot of birds like quail and chickens, and we don't have all those names. Well, so I had 40 quail that I was raising. Raccoons got in the pen and ate them all in one night. 40 gone.
Raccoons killed 40 quails.
And 2 ducks in one night.
And 2 what?
2 ducks. I had 2 ducks in there too.
Fuck.
One night, gone.
Is that heartbreaking?
I mean, I wasn't that attached to the quail.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, there's quail. They're just chilling.
Dude, if I have a turtle.
Yeah.
Its name used to be Ketchup.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
When we moved from Illinois to here, we're like, everybody's coming up. You know, bought him a bigger tank. The fucking terrarium's fucking flossing, right? You know, like that sort. So I because of my wife, I get really attached to these things.
Animals,
so that's why I'm like, was that?
Well, I am attached to a lot of the bigger animals that have like personality. So I've got 4 goats, had 3, so 2 sheep, 2 donkeys, a llama, an alpaca, 4 pigs. I think that's all the big animals. So 14 big animals, and then a bunch of chickens, turkeys, ducks, guineas. I used to have quail.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, lots of animals.
You're in rural land, so there's wildlife.
There's deer in my backyard all the time, running around doing their thing.
Any predators that come in?
Yeah.
No, I obviously know the fucking answer, but I want them to.
Yeah. I mean, raccoons are number 1. Like that's like enemy number 1 right now.
I didn't know that.
Dude, they are the meanest animal. Like I'd rather like take on a bobcat and a coyote versus a pack of raccoons. Like raccoons are mean. The other thing I didn't know about raccoons that no one taught me, of all the YouTube videos I've ever watched, is they can just go right through chicken wire. Like they can bite and rip through chicken wire, which chicken wire is made to keep them alive. So like I built this huge walk-in enclosure for all these quail, and nothing happened for like 2 months. Nothing at all. Never had any issues. And all of a sudden I wake up and they have like 4 holes chewed and they're all dead in one night. Like, what do you do at that point?
And that was documented.
Yeah. Like we filmed the whole video and I was like, oh my gosh, like, all right, so we can't have anything living here now. So I spent days building this enclosure, and it's worthless now. So I called the game warden, and we get permission to trap, because it's not trapping season. Trapping season's in the fall. But he gives me permission because like you're protecting livestock. So we set traps in I think 4 days we got 7 of them. So it's like they're out there, and it's crazy. But I mean, coyotes are out there. We've caught bobcats out there, but they don't really mess with much. Like they don't endanger us by any means. Raccoons are the scariest ones for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you put them up against a fight with a honey badger, who do you think's got it?
Ooh, I mean, honey badger's pretty vicious. I feel like I don't know.
They fight fucking lions, dude.
Yeah. I feel like honey badger would take it. Raccoons, they're mean though.
Raccoons,
they are mean,
bro.
dude.
You seen that one raccoon that got into the chimpanzee enclosure, and then fucking chimps are playing with him, and just so carefree, grab him, fucking toss the you see this fucking raccoon flying through the air like a fucking flying squirrel. Like it opens up, it's taking the funniest thing. But they're like, I've heard. I used to paint graffiti back in the day, and I was always out at night, and we would have to walk through forest and whatever to get to the train yard or whatever. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that you would hear like the rustling of the trees and branches, and all of a sudden, boom, a big ass thump. Like I'm talking about tall, like fucking 30-foot trees and pine trees, and just a fucking ball of meat just fall through the air, and all you hear is the splatter.
Yeah.
But they're like,
Dude, they're fine.
They wipe
they're
their,
they're the hardiest things. Like I don't know what I mean. Yeah, they're crazy.
they're crazy survivors.
Yes.